Okay, so recently I read, I just read out loud um, recently, and that was something I haven't done for a very long time. It was kind of like done in a jokingly manner, um, and just read a chapter of this book. It's called They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us by Hanif Abdurraqib. Abdurraqib. I'm probably butchering his name, but I don't quite know if it was just the fact that I read it out loud versus reading it. I'm on, was on page 59, so I read up until then, and only the chapter before the chapter that I just read on page 53 was something that I've read out loud. Everything before that, I just read in my head. And I don't know if it's the fact that I read it out loud or if this poem was really just something that resonated. Not poem, it's essays. But it felt poetic. It felt heavy. It felt almost like he was talking to me, and it was so relatable to me. So far, this is one of the best essays that I wrote in terms, not I wrote, I read in terms of how it all just flowed together. And back to me reading, the point that I originally just was like, bro, reading out loud is so hard for me now. I haven't done it in so long and haven't had a reason to do it in so long. It was so hard. And even pushing through, continue to read the whole chapter out loud, or I guess the whole essay out loud, it was almost humiliating, but I'm sitting here by myself. So that was a weird feeling to continue to keep stumbling on words and making up sentences just because I'm trying to go too fast. I'm trying to read it like I read regularly, which is when I read in my head, I read a lot faster. And it was cool because once I did slow down and was able to not mess up as much, it was maybe that had something to do with how profound it was for me. But I I would read it out loud to y'all right now, but I just got finished doing it, and I kind of more just want to talk about this was really, really, really good in my opinion. Touched on a lot of different things in such a unique way for its length and the way he jumped back and forth. And initially I was like, okay, this doesn't really fit in, but this, I was recommended this book by my college writing teacher. What was that, maybe 4 years ago now? Not 4 years ago, 3 years ago now. And I just started picking it up again to start reading it maybe a few months ago. And it's called Under Half-Lit Fluorescence, The Wonder Years and the Great Suburban Narrative. And I'll have to read it out loud again and attach this to the end, but there's something so heavy about this. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about how the idea of reading out loud, how I feel like I watched a YouTube video that was talking about it. If I can remember it, or if I find it, I'll link it in the description or add it in the cards. But man, it like I truly feel embarrassed, and I'm sitting here in my house alone, and that's insane. But I'll again, the book is "They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us." It's a book of essays. I won't say his name again because I'll butcher it, but I'm sure you can find it with that title. And the title is "Under Half-Lit Fluorescence: The Wonder Years and the Great Suburban Narrative." And then I guess I'll attach me reading it, stumbles and all. I'm sure that there will be those in there um, at the end of this. I said I was going to give it to y'all. Pause. Not pause. So here it is. All one take. I'm going to try not to mess up, so that means I'll go slow enough to where I won't. But here we go. Under half-lit fluorescence, the wonder years, and the great suburban narrative. It is a strange thing to grow up poor, or in any interpretation of the hood, and be in very close proximity to the suburbs, a short walk or bike ride away from a world that seems entirely unlike your own, a dream that you could be snatched from at any moment. As a curious kid, always fascinated by the idea of escape, I would sometimes meet my friends and ride our bikes to the edge of our neighborhood, onto the blocks where the houses were taller, the sidewalks were more even underneath our bike tires, and the silence was a gift to a group of reckless and noisy boys, spilling in from a place where everything rattled with the bass kicking out of someone's trunk. We would ride our bikes with our dirty and torn jeans and look at the manicured lawns and grand entrances and the playgrounds with no broken glass stretched across the landscape. During the day in the summer, we were just kids there. Black, sure, but not particularly threatening or dangerous to all of the other kids who were, like us, trying to find a way to kill time while their parents were at work and school was out. And then, with the sun setting on another hot day, we would ride back a few blocks to our neighborhood's familiar skin. The language we knew, the songs we could rap along to, and the comfort that comes with not standing out. When I say it is a strange thing to live in close proximity to a world so vastly different than your own, I mean that it creates a longing within the imagination. You long for a place that you know only by its snapshots and not by the lives moving within them. It allowed me to fantasize, imagine a world where everyone was happy and no one ever hurt. The Wonder Years' third album, Suburbia, I've Given You All, and Now I'm Nothing, released nearly 5 years ago as of 2016, takes its title from the Allen Ginsberg poem America. The poem opens, America, I've given you all, and now I'm nothing. America, $2.27, January 17th, 1956. I can't stand my own mind. America, when will we end the human war? The poem, like most Ginsberg poems, of its era is sprawling and emotionally uneven, a meditation on the unrest of war's aftermath that is equal parts angry and humorous, confused yet determined. We met the Wonder Years here in their truest form on the album opener, Came Out Swinging, a song that, even now, is a high functioning album opener. A arm that reaches from the speaker and wraps around you, pulling you gently to the speaker's mouth. We find this Pennsylvania pop punk band as we found Ginsberg in a different time, not lost and anxious in the aftermath of actual war, of course. Only war is war, but the anxiety on the album is palpable nonetheless. It is an album of return and escape and return and escape again. It feels, in tone and tension, like coming home for a summer after your first year of college, having tasted another existence and wanting more. But instead, sleeping in your childhood room. Home is where the heart begins, but not where the heart stays. The heart scatters across states and has nothing left after what home takes from it. I know the suburbs best by how they consumed the kids I knew in my teenage years. The punk kids, the emo kids, the soccer kids, the kids who came out to the basketball courts with the black kids to play the way they couldn't in their backyard. So many of us, especially teenagers, strive to be something we're not. Escape is vital, in some cases, as a survival tool. Once, I never knew how anyone who lived in a beautiful home in a nice neighborhood could be sad. Sometimes, you know so much of not having, it is easy to imagine those who do have as exceptionally worry-free. Sadness, when you are truly being swallowed by it, can feel almost universal. Not the vehicle that drives you to the doorsteps of sadness, and certainly not the way it manifests itself inside of you, but the sadness itself, the soaking feeling of it, is something that you know everyone around you has had a taste of. The kids who came to rap and punk shows in nice shoes, always fighting to stay out just a bit later, anything to keep them away from home, anything to keep them in a world unlike their own. This is the cycle we create and live through. We see the greener grass and then run into it. Run to it. The first time I lost a friend, a true friend, to the unfamiliar violence of a bottle of pills, I wondered what it must be like to not feel like you were destined for death, but still want to arrive at it. And then another friend, and then another, a rooftop, a car crash. When you go to enough funerals in the summer, you learn tricks. Bring a lighter jacket, something that can be carried. Wear a shirt that you don't mind sweating through. Deep pockets to stash your tie after it gets taken off and your shirt buttons are loosened. I don't remember when my friends and I stopped asking the question of why around death. I understand what it is to be sad, even when everyone around you is demanding your happiness. And what are we to do with all of that pressure other than search for a song that lets us be drained of it all? The great mission of any art that revolves around place is the mission of honesty. So many of us lean into romantics when we write of whatever place we crawled out of, perhaps because we feel like we owe it something, even when it has taken more from us than we've taken from it. The mission of honesty becomes a bit cloudy when we decide to be honest about not loving the spaces we have claimed as our own. This is the work of suburbia. It isn't carried out with bitterness, but with a timeline of questions. Who is going to be brave enough to ask where home is and seek out something else if they don't like the answer? And yes, the songs that fall out of this process are as brilliant as any song in the punk pop emo genre have ever seen. As brilliant as any song in the punk pop punk emo genre have ever seen. Local man ruins everything, dresses up the grief in the center of the room until it becomes forgettable. Summers in PA could be about you and all your friends in any summer where you all felt invincible. Don't Let Me Cave In is a negotiation of distance and home and greater distance. The band was operating at a level of greatness they hadn't reached before that point. It's a jarring, emotionally honest undertaking that chooses interrogation over nostalgia's soft and simple target. The album ends with "And Now I'm Nothing," the ultimate anchor, echoing a small plea of freedom. Suburbia, stop pushing. I know what I'm doing. Suburbia, stop pushing. I know what I'm doing. A lot of people I know who dismissed emo while the genre was at its peak did so because they believed emotions were things that should be scarce and unspoken, not screamed out to the listening masses. I push back against that, both in personal practice and as someone who has seen the other side of that coin, or known people completely eaten alive by the hoarding of sacred emotions. And, of course, we say the world doesn't care about your problems. We say that, and we know that our problems aren't only our problems, and that there are people who need to know that their problems aren't only their problems. The glory of the Wonder Years in suburbia and everything since is that their mission seems to be entirely unselfish in scope. This is what, to me, has separated them from their peers in the genre: a willingness to own their shitty past and everything they entailed without also trying to cash it in for points. Without trying to be the smartest or most charming band in the room. I'm sad and I've hurt people and I am a beautifully tortured survivor of my past is a hard thing to say out loud or scream in a chorus. But it is the honest thing, which makes it the thing, which means it is the thing that I would rather have sitting in the room with me on a day I miss everyone. Suburbia is the first of the stunning trilogy of the Wonder Years albums that all seem to be in conversation with each other. 2013's The Greatest Generation and 2015's No Closer to Heaven all sit in the same space. They are albums that are awash with questions and content not providing any answers. They are all telling singular stories in their frantic urgency and emotion. Suburbia, about the idea of home. Greatest Generation, about the idea of growing up and leaving things behind. No Closer to Heaven, about death and loss. All of them, particularly the first two, centered on the American suburban experience. All of them say, "I'm sad like you are, and I cannot promise to fix this, but we're going to be here together." I am still, always, a black kid from a black neighborhood who once biked to the edge of the suburbs and then once loved my friends from the suburbs and then sometimes buried my friends from the suburbs, and even then never understanding the interior of those lives beyond the angst-ridden stories that teenagers share. I never understood how life how a life that looked beautiful could be immensely sad. Where you live and grow up in America has very real implications, and that isn't to be ignored here. But I found myself, and still find myself, always considering the place I'm from and the pressure and expectations that come with that. I am proud to have survived where I'm from, and I happily keep it close to me. What the Wonder Years do best, first, with Suburbia, is kick a door wide open to the rest of us who admire the imagined life from afar. I listen to the Wonder Years, and I am back on my bike again, tearing through the even sidewalks and manicured lawns. The difference is that when I close my eyes and imagine this, I can see the houses now. I can see the lives inside. I can feel the unshakable, and honest grief thick in the air as I bike home. As I bike home. Yeah, a lot of thoughts there, but I don't want to make this any longer than I guess it has to be. Um, I don't quite remember everything that I said before this, but really just the idea that where I'm from has implications. The idea that, like, I think it was like when you don't have certain things, when you envision the people that have those certain things, you can say, oh, like, because you have the thought in your head, if I had that, I would be content. And then you see the people that have it, and like, there's no way that they could be sad or they could have like problems, and that's really profound to me. And then the um, when he says, I'm from, like, always considering the place that I'm from and the pressures and expectations that come with that. I am proud to have survived here where I'm from, to have survived where I'm from, and happily keep it close to me. Oh my goodness. Um, that was good. And then there were a couple other parts, particularly on the dissection of the actual music and how he, like, intertwines that with all these real things, but connects it in a way that makes it meaningful and makes me want to go listen to this stuff. I'm not quite a lyric deep diver. I feel like I'm more of a vibe and an emotional kind of soaker when it comes to the sonics of music versus the lyrics of music. And even in the lyrics and the presentation of the words, it's more about how it's said versus really what the words are in a lot of the different cases. Um, Particularly like what he's talking about and where he says, um, I'm sad and I've hurt people and I'm beautifully tortured. I am a beautifully tortured survivor of my past, and how that's hard to say out loud. Yeah, that's really hard to say out loud, and they said that out loud, and that that's the thing that I kind of feel when I listen to certain, like, some of my favorite albums are like of that same essence, to where, like, dang, they said that out loud, but in feeling. So it's like, this sounds, or this literally, these sonics literally make me feel this way, and I know they felt that way, or someone singing it with such inflections to where, like, I know whatever words that they're saying, they actually mean that, or they actually feel that way. And so I relate it on that level as well. But this was just really, really good, and my favorite so far. I'm on page, what, I don't remember, out of 200 some pages that are in this book. Um, Now I'm on page 65. So um, just read the my favorite of this book so far. But I said I was going to read it, so I read it. Hopefully, it wasn't too unbearable to listen to. And now it's in the internet's event horizon.